friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we talk about manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. The gas pipeline as a propaganda show Russian television is celebrating a victory again. On the air of the program 60 Minutes, the hosts enthusiastically announced the signing of an agreement on the construction of the gas pipeline, Power of Siberia-2. Moscow presents this event as a geopolitical sensation, as the final blow to Europe. But behind the big words lies the usual set of propaganda tricks, designed more for a domestic audience than for a real change in the global energy sector. Power of Siberia-2 as a replacement for Europe. The show's hosts assure that the new pipeline will allow Russia to forget about the European Union and completely cover the losses from the severance of energy ties with the West. It sounds impressive, but the economic reality is far from the television script. China is a tough trading partner, and all gas negotiations have been held with huge delays precisely because Beijing dictates the terms. Where Europe paid the market price, China demands discounts. But this is not explained to the viewer. Instead of analysis, there is an emotional performance. Europe has lost its leverage. We are no longer worried about the Nord Streams. This creates the illusion that the Kremlin itself closed the door, although in fact the door slammed shut from the other side. Geopolitical smoke. The second gift of the broadcast is the news about China introducing a visa-free regime for Russians. On Russian TV, this is presented as evidence of the special relationship between Moscow and Beijing. In reality, the visa-free regime is a gesture of diplomatic politeness, nothing more. It does not change the balance of power, nor Russia's dependence on China. What is more important is that propaganda is building a picture of a great alliance of Russia and China against the West. Cameras show Putin and Xi shaking hands. Reporters recount every detail of the menu and ceremonial speeches. But behind the glitter of the receptions lies a cold calculation. Beijing sees Russia as a resource appendage, while Moscow is trying to prove that its isolation is a new force. Europe is a target for gloating. The entire broadcast is built around one idea: Europe has lost. The viewer is told that gas will now go to China, that the Europeans are left without leverage, that Ukraine is a topic of no use to anyone. Europe is portrayed as pathetic, hostile, and lost. But in this caricature, it is easy to see the main goal: to instill in Russian society the idea that the West no longer plays a role. These duties are called protective in Russian. That is, there is no trade between China and the United States. This is exactly what Donald Trump threatened the chairman of the People's Republic of China with. He himself subsequently backed down and declared a truce. And within the framework of this truce, Xi Jinping, together with the president of Russia, made this important decision, which really shocked the West. Why is the decision shocking? Because there is already one line of Siberian forces through which we supply China with about 50 billion cubic meters of gas. Today it became known that the volume will increase, to be more precise, to 44 billion cubic meters of gas. The second line of Siberia, 2 forces, is another 50 billion cubic meters of gas. That is, we add one to the other, and it turns out to be about 100 billion cubic meters. Well, that is, we forget about the European Union, we no longer worry about those very Nord Stream 2, which, as it became known, were recently blown up by the Ukrainians. What remains behind the scenes? Not a word about the fact that new gas projects require decades and billions of dollars in investment. Not a word about the fact that Russia has lost key markets, technologies, and financial channels during the war. Not a word about the country's economy shrinking and friends, like China and India, using Moscow as a junior partner. The TV picture paints a triumph. The reality is much more prosaic. Russia is trying to survive by clinging to the Chinese market and calls this dependence a victory. You were on the program Empire of Lies. See you soon.